Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to Dattitude Friday morning, the first show of February, episode number 207. And if it looks like I'm happy, I am, because football season is almost over. Larry Holder is here with me. I am Jim Derry, and you know those days of working like 15. I know we go year round now, but it's definitely not the same kind of day when football season's finally over.
I mean, what a way to bring in an audience. I can't wait for it to be over so I don't have to talk about this stuff anymore.
I'm only half serious, by the way. It is kind of bittersweet when it's over, right?
Well, you get bored. All of a sudden, you're thinking, like, what am I going to do now on Sunday and Monday and Thursday and whatever day the NFL wants to play? So, yeah, it's if you're covering it and all this, and you go through the Super Bowl, like I do. I mean, I got to go through the Super Bowl, and my world never stops.
Right.
Unlike what it used to be when it was just Saints only. But still, it stops, and then you kind of get bored, and you're thinking, man, what now? What do I do? Like
you reunite with your family.
Well, it's not like they're not around. I mean, look,
yeah, but they're like in the background.
They even make appearances every week. Like you just have some.
Yeah, Joni was.
You're in the dome apparently
last week.
Yeah, my wife popped in the frame last week. She's like, "What are you doing, fool?"
That's pretty funny. All right, well, we got a lot to talk about today. Try to jam pack it into 35, 40 minutes. We'll see what happens. There are a couple main topics as far as we're concerned: Saints and Super Bowl, and a little bit of hirings in the NFL that I thought were interesting. I want to talk to you about, but we're going to start off today's show with the Saints, and I put up there, I didn't talk about Derek Carr in the headlines, but I think he's something I want to lead off with. And are the Saints waiting for Clint Kubiak is one of my questions, but I think it's tied into Derek Carr. If you saw what I posted on X a little while ago, maybe intriguing. Jeff Duncan's column for the weekend is out, and he writes that it may be an unpopular decision for a lot of Saints fans. We'd love to have your comments, by the way. If you want to type in your comment, whether you're watching on YouTube, Facebook, or X, we'll be happy to put them on the screen and talk about it. But I'm kind of torn, mixed a little bit. I think it's a good move for the Saints to tie themselves to Carr for another year, and for this reason. Because, first of all, I think first and foremost, obviously it's going to help with the cap situation, because they're going to be able to take off some of his cap money, and cap, it'll give them room. They're like $75 million over. They got to do something. And B, you're not going to find anyone that's better than Derek Carr making the money that Derek Carr. He's making the money that he's supposed to make. And I think in the grand scheme of things, if they get the right offensive coordinator, and you see the numbers on the screen, what they were able to do last year, nothing spectacular, but the passing offense was 11th. I think, Larry, that they can be good next year if they get the right OC with Derek Carr.
Can they be good? Sure. Now, if you're a Saints fan, is good enough from what you're used to in the past? Probably not. And so I think that's like you could be upset at the situation, but in this, like the overall grand scheme of the state of the team. But in terms of where you are with quarterback, I mean, you're not turning away from him in 2024. Like,
right.
You're having to go with him. Like that's obvious. And so, I mean, look, it doesn't surprise me that this is going to happen. And already seems in the works. And I mean, it doesn't shock me at all. And part of it is like you're saying, like the state of where this team is, the players they have. I mean, they are still in the, all right, we can compete and win in the NFC South and move forward. They're not Carolina. They're not other teams in the NFL where they're tearing down and building back up. And now you could say, well, why can't the Saints be the Texans? I mean, they had to basically tear it all down, and they're made it a playoffs, and they have a new coach and a new quarterback. But it's not like the Texans, their overall roster wasn't in the same state. Like they were consistently bad and dealing with their own problems with Deshaun Watson. Like, so if it goes bad with Derek Carr and then all these other veteran players move on at some point, then that could open the door for maybe a younger movement and you have some real struggle years. But right now they feel like they can compete, and I think they can. like they should have this year. Like, so I think
Why
they
can't the
should
Saints
next
be?
year.
Why can't the Saints be like the Lions, though? I mean, I think that and I mean this wholeheartedly. People may disagree with me all they want. I'm not impressed with Jared Goff at all. I think Derek Carr is better than Jared Goff. Okay, whether I know your numbers at the Athletic from this year probably don't support that fact, but I think overall Derek Carr is a better quarterback than Jared Goff. I think it's more important for them to shore up their offensive line. I think if the Saints shore up their offensive line, give Derek Carr time to throw, I don't see any reason why this team on offense can't be at least on par with the Lions or close to it, and make a run like the Lions made a run this year.
Well, I think part of that is we need to see how the scheme's going to be. Like the offensive scheme that the Saints had this past year wasn't going to isn't the Lions.
Wholeheartedly agree.
So yeah, so I think we need to know what's going to happen there. And the Lions certainly have different elements to their game and to their skill set positions. Offensive line too. Their offensive line is better than the Saints.
Way better.
So, and yes, and the way they use their skill position players, like they have more dynamic people in tandem in Detroit than the Saints did. Tight end for sure. I mean, they got Sam Laporta. Like the Saints don't have Juwan Johnson. I mean, could he be? I don't know, but he's not Sam Laporta right now. And so I think when you look at it in that sense, like I do think that, and as you alluded to, look, the numbers that I do all the time, basically year round now, would not support what you're saying, but Carr's not that far off from Goff. Like that's the difference.
But that's
like,
what I'm
it's
saying.
Not, it's like that's not like a hemisphere off. Like they're similar. I feel like Goff has gotten better, but Goff is a top at best. When he's at his best, Goff is like a top 8 quarterback. Like at Carr's best, I would put him at like a top 11.
Yeah.
So there's not that much difference.
I just think that if you get the right OC in here, and improve the offensive line, because look, it wasn't that long ago the Saints had a top 6 or 8 offensive line. It wasn't that long ago. So the precipitous drop that they've made over the past few years, to me, it doesn't take that much to get back to where if you draft correctly, because I think O-line is something that you need to draft for, unless there's a left tackle that the Saints don't have the money to go out there and spend money that they need to get for a left tackle. They're going to need to draft correctly. Now, I'm not saying that they're going to do this because they've shown before that to me, Trevor Penning's, I know it's early, he still could turn into something. And, optimistic Jeff Duncan, they're trying Trevor Penning at this, and maybe he'll play left guard, and maybe he'll do this. And, maybe unicorns will fly into my house and have a Mardi Gras party, but I doubt it. I'm just saying that I think that they need to look at this. Okay, Trevor Penning's a bust. Move on. Address this in the draft. I think they need to draft 2 starting offensive linemen in the draft, which is hard to do, but I think they can do it if they scout wisely and look into this wisely and go into the draft thinking that way.
But I do think they have to explore something with Penning. Like you're connected to the guy for a couple more years. You're not cutting him. Like all of his stuff's guaranteed. Like let's try to see if something works for him. So I get that logic. Guard might be a better spot. I mean, we had to do that with Andres Pete, so it might be better. So you got to at least explore that. But I do think we know that tackle is probably not the most optimal spot for him. So, you got to figure that out. So yeah, like it's something that look, they're going to have some kind of money because they always do in free agency to go do something. But what do you address? And I'm like trying to multitask. I'm trying to go find like my free agent outlook here in terms of players. Like I'm actually going to update. I'm going to have like an overall league free agency stock watch after the Super Bowl. So that I did one in December. So I've done a couple of them. And if you're talking like who's going to be on the market for like offensive line and tackle, I mean, some of these guys are going to be high price guys. I mean, you're not going to go out and get like Tyron Smith.
Right. Of course.
You're not going to go do that. I would just assume that he would stay with the Lions. Like someone like Jonah Williams from the Bengals, who he got moved from left tackle to right tackle, better, but still,
the Saints might need a right tackle too soon. I mean, Ryan Ramczyk is He's obviously shown injury struggles the last 2 years. By the way, Larry Holder works for The Athletic. If you didn't know that, you can go check out all of his stuff on The Athletic. He covers the NFL, and look at it all the time. I mean, I'm not just saying this. The Athletic is a great source for all things NFL. You can go in there, easy to find stats, box scores, figures, look ahead to the draft, everything you need on The Athletic. I use it every day almost. So, again, not just a shameless plug. I use it as well. Look, I think you're right. I mean, but as far as those guys go, but when you're $75 million over the cap and you're trying to put a Band-Aid on things, and we've been doing this here in New Orleans for years and years. I mean, they were doing this when you were covering the Saints. I mean, they've been putting Band-Aids on this thing for you. At some point, you got to say, we can't put a Band-Aid on the cap anymore. And you got to figure out a way to, like, I hate to say hit the reset button because fans want to win, but is that what you do at some point?
I think you have to wait out, and it kind of goes back to the point I was saying with Carr. Like, you have to wait out this kind of wave of players that they have. Like, you're going to play out with Demario Davis, you're going to play out with Cam Jordan, you're going to play out with Carr, you're going to play out with like someone like Ramczyk. Like, you're going to play some of this out. Yeah. Now, when do you play out someone like Kamara or Lattimore? I know their names are going to be volleyed around, speculating whether they're going to be cut, traded, something. So maybe a slow trickle like this offseason, right. But then another one, it might just be, it would remind me like in the offseason leading up into like the 2014 season when the Saints had to cut ties with like Lance Moore, Roman Harper, Darren Sproles, Will Smith. Like it was like a house cleaning of like who's who names that offseason. Malcolm Jenkins too. Like it was it was wild. Like it was definitely a change of kind of course within a lot of the locker room. And so, that could easily happen at some point. It could happen next offseason, but obviously it's not happening this offseason.
I just think that at some point you say, you know what, we can't continue to do this. And I know no one wants to hit the full reset button because all those players you talked about, if you lose 3 or 4 of them, you're probably in trouble. You don't replace those guys. But we know Mike Thomas is gone. I think there's a better than 50-50 chance, probably better than 70-30 chance that Lattimore is gone. And Alvin Kamara, I mean, people don't want to hear this, but I think there's at least a 50-50 chance that Alvin Kamara is gone. I mean, these are just things that you have to be realistic about. So if these 3 guys are gone, and then the next year you got 3 or 4 more guys going, you're doing it, you're death by 1,000 cuts. I'd almost rather just, whack off the arm.
Well, here's the thing. Like, say if you got rid of, let's just hypothetically, you got rid of Lattimore and Kamara. Like, at cornerback, you've seen that you can play well without Lattimore.
Yeah.
Some contending team would probably want him. I mean, when healthy, he can go play, and I think he'd probably like a fresh start. So that's
he's got at least 2 more years. Kamara's got at least, I think, 2 more years left, but not much.
Well, I'm talking about Lattimore, but Kamara,
but
Kamara, look. I mean, if you're the Saints, you basically paid him around what Christian McCaffrey got paid.
Yeah.
And he's not been Christian McCaffrey.
Not even
and
close.
Guess what? Look, man, when you get to free agency this offseason, there is a who's who of running backs that are going to be available. And I can't for the life of me see anybody getting anything like what McCaffrey got. Like McCaffrey's on the island. Some people got paid near him, like Kamara, like Dalvin Cook, like remember Zeke Elliott got a huge contract.
Yeah.
Like none of these guys, like Josh Jacobs didn't do it. Like Derrick Henry, Spading, Austin Eckler, Tony Pollard. Maybe Josh Jacobs of all of those guys might, because he's still young, might be someone who gets paid decent money, but no one is getting McCaffrey money. So
because I don't think running backs in general are going to make that much money anymore. They're just not. I mean, the NFL teams are getting it. We saw how Saquon Barkley went into a long extended.
Barkley's another one. I just left him off the list, but he's on that list too. Yeah, exactly. And so when you look at it, you're not getting what you're investing in Kamara. I mean, it's just not there. Like if you were getting McCaffrey production out of Kamara, you'd have no problem with it, but he's not. And so
if you were getting Alvin Kamara production from 3 or 4 years ago, you'd be fine.
Absolutely. Well, that's why he got paid that, because he played so well, and you thought that could continue. And look, I think, what are they? They're like,
20,
Kamara was the draft class after McCaffrey.
2017, I believe.
McCaffrey was McCaffrey with Fournette? I'm trying to remember.
I think no, I don't think McCaffrey and Fournette were the same year.
No, McCaffrey was 2017. That's right.
Okay.
They're the same draft class. So yeah, same. I'm looking it up because it's going to bother me.
Right. Well, I mean, the Saints were 21st in rushing. Jamal Williams didn't help.
Same draft class. McCaffrey, Kamara, same
thought.
draft class. Yes.
Right. 21st in rushing. It just goes to show. Look, fans don't want to hear this because they love Alvin Kamara. It's the same with Drew Brees. I mean, no one could be. I can't say no one, but a majority of Saints fans couldn't be realistic. And they talk about. You try to compare Drew Brees to Derek Carr now, and Drew Brees the last 2 years of his career. This is blasphemy. I know people will hate me. The numbers will go. No one will watch me when I say this. They'll turn this off. But the last 2 years of Drew Brees' career were no better than what Derek Carr gave us last year. I'm sorry, they just weren't. And so I know fans love Alvin Kamara, but the fact is he's just not been all that productive the last 2 years. You can blame it on Pete Carmichael if you want. You can blame it on Derek Carr if you want. You can blame it on whoever you want. But the fact is he's just not the same player that he used to be.
I'm looking up Drew Brees right now to give myself a friendly reminder.
All right, while you're doing that, I'm going to show a comment here. Taylor DeMarco says, if the Saints end up trading Lattimore, what is the likely compensation? Rams received a third-round pick for Jalen Ramsey this past offseason. What is the market for an injured Lattimore? He's not injured anymore. I think that's unfair to say that he's injured. Because, let's face it, he probably, if it would have really mattered, I think Lattimore, like if the Saints would have been a 10 or 11 win team, I think you would have seen Lattimore in there towards the end. What is the market for an injured Lattimore? Detroit seems like a decent fit. I think there are a lot of decent fits for Lattimore. And as far as compensation goes, Larry, I think it depends on how much money we're talking here. I think third round is probably a reasonable scenario.
That would be reasonable. I mean, he's not Jalen Ramsey.
No.
I would say he's a tick below. I mean, he's a perennial pro bowler, but like Jalen Ramsey is a top guy. And so it's certainly something that there's going to be a market for him. There's no question about it. Like a win now team, there's no doubt somebody.
And I think Detroit is a decent fit. I think that's a great would be a great place, but I think there are probably 7 or 8 other teams that also. I mean, you look at a team like Buffalo that's going to be losing some players next year. In the same division, the Dolphins are going to be looking. I mean, they've got Jalen Ramsey, but I mean they'll be needing help in their defensive backfield as well. So
yeah,
I mean,
Buffalo's hoping to get Tre'Davious White back. I mean, he got injured and missed half the season.
Right.
Detroit makes sense because Aaron Glenn's still there. I mean, and Dan Campbell, so they obviously know the player. Look, someone like Detroit. I mean, we just mentioned someone like San Francisco. I mean, they could here's the thing. Like if they feel like, oh man, our defense is kind of slipping. I know they have Ward, but man, and here's the beauty of it with the 49ers is that they don't have to pay Brock Purdy yet.
Yeah.
They can get some of these pieces and then say Lattimore's there for 2 years and then you move on and then you got to pay Purdy. Like they have money to move around still because they're not so tied in to the quarterback. Another one could be the Chiefs because L'Jarius Sneed might go somewhere else and they might need a shutdown corner. And because they got to pay Sneed, Chris Jones, like those are 2 premier defensive players that are huge behind what they're doing this year. And they might say, all right, come on down, Lattimore. And I think
that one punch out from L'Jarius Sneed, that got him a lot of money, didn't it?
He made plenty of money before that, but that just added a little more. Like
that might have got him a couple million.
To me, he's like the top 5 free agent.
Yeah.
He's been phenomenal and deserves all the money he's going to get. I
agree with you. All right, let's move on a little bit because there are some other topics I want to talk about. And before we get to this early thoughts on the Super Bowl and kind of want to get your opinion on some things that happened last weekend. That's the weird thing about only having the show once a week instead of having it 2 or 3 times a week. I don't get to do the immediate reaction, but that's where we are right now. All right, I want to talk about Mike McDonald and Dan Quinn, hired in Seattle and Washington, respectively. And it's interesting because Quinn was rumored to be going to Seattle. I think Washington had their sights set on Ben Johnson, and he didn't. And he didn't leave Detroit, so they were kind of hosed, and I think they didn't know what to do, and they panicked, and they hired Dan Quinn for some unknown reason. But I'm not. Look, I don't have to be in love. It doesn't make a difference in the grand scheme of things, what I think. But I think both of these teams could have done better, especially in Washington. I don't understand Dan Quinn becoming a head coach again at all. If anything, they did Dallas a favor.
I think Dan Quinn, you see how it goes. Like the teams get better and you get a second chance. And like, it doesn't surprise me that he got hired somewhere. Washington didn't seem like it was going to be the fit. Like you said, Seattle seemed like more of the fit, but like neither hire. I mean, they don't blow me away, but I'm not like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they hired this guy. So I'm not, it doesn't, I'm not, I don't know how. I don't really have a strong opinion, but there's no doubt Washington wanted Ben Johnson. There's no doubt, and then he told Seattle and Washington, "No, I'm staying put."
Which is
maybe
weird, by the way. For the second straight year, he passed up a head coaching gig. That is weird.
Well, maybe he's looking around the league and seeing maybe some other places might open. I don't know. What if he's waiting for the Saints?
What if he's waiting for the Lions? What if he's waiting for the Lions job to open up?
Oh, Dan Campbell's not going anywhere.
Dan Campbell makes more boneheaded mistakes like he made last week. They had to fire. I said they should fire his ass anyway. That's a whole different story. But I just look, Mike McDonald. You knew he was going to get a job. I mean, he was going to get a head coaching job. I thought he kind of made the Ravens look like the Ravens again. I thought he did a really good job. Is that enough to become a head coach? We'll see. Dan Quinn, all I can think of is 28-3. I'm sorry. That's all I can think of. And it's not fair, probably. And Shanahan overcame 28-3, and he's in the Super Bowl again. I just don't know, man. What did anyone see from Dallas's defense down the stretch that leads anyone to believe that Dan Quinn can be a really good head coach?
That definitely tarnished him at the end. I mean, there's no doubt about it. But still, like I think Washington had to do some fallbacks. I mean, got to hire a coach.
But you don't have to run out there and get like the first person you see. I mean,
well, they did.
They didn't get who we wanted, so we're just going to go hire Dan Quinn. I mean,
they were doing their homework for a long time. There's no doubt. This is not Dan Snyder running this. This is a guy who owns another franchise. Say what you want about the 76ers, but I mean, look, it's not like this guy is just some David Tepper. Like he's not that.
Oh boy, here we go with David Tepper again.
He's not
you
that.
love jumping on David Tepper, don't you?
He's a clown, man. He's a total joke.
Carolina,
like he's a joke.
Panthers.
He's a joke. Like Canales, like that is a.
That's a joke.
You're like trying to find, you're trying to find somebody. All right, we're going to get lightning in a bottle, maybe.
I'd rather Dan Quinn than Dave Canales for sure.
Okay, see, that is fair.
If those were my two choices, I'm taking Dan Quinn every day and Sunday. Just saying, but who do we think are some of the next hires? I mean, obviously we're going down the road. We talked about Raheem Morris in Atlanta last week. Are you surprised that? I mean, it's obvious that Bill Belichick's going to have to sit on the sideline and maybe be a consultant next year. Is he going to get another chance to be a head coach? He's not getting any younger. I mean, none of us are, but in the grand scheme of things, you're talking about 72 years old. Is a 73-year-old dude going to get a chance to head coach even if he is the GOAT?
I think that is a good question that I won't discount it, but I mean, you add it all up and you're thinking, all right, well, you got to think about the teams that might have openings next year.
New Orleans?
What if Dallas has an opening next year? Like they hung on to McCarthy now. What if Dallas has that opening? Because they stuck.
I don't see Belichick working with Jerry Jones.
Well, if Jerry Jones is like, man, I got to make one last stand.
He did hire Bill Parcells, though. So
exactly. So it's like
didn't last that long, but I mean,
it's like if I got to make one last stand, I might as well go out with this guy. But still,
an aging Dak with Bill Belichick. I don't know.
What if the Bills come open?
That would be interesting. Now, that would be an interesting scenario. I absolutely could see that happening.
Yeah, I could too.
And I think Bill Belichick could. I don't know if he's. Lord knows, I think Josh Allen. Anyone that's watched his show or listen to me anywhere, and I know I'm in the minority. I think Josh Allen is overhyped and overrated, immensely overhyped and overrated. I don't. He shows it. He's kind of chokes. He and Lamar Jackson ought to go have beers together. But I just don't get it. But I think maybe with the Bill Belichick, that would be an interesting scenario. But I'm just going to say it again. You never touch. What if we go through another season like this here in New Orleans? This job becomes open. Bill Belichick. I mean, Bill Belichick could pretty much do whatever he wanted to do here in New Orleans. Mickey Loomis would say, "Okay, whatever you want, Bill."
I didn't discount it when the Saints were trying to claw back to being 500. Like, I didn't discount it just because Bill Belichick and the Saints have a good working relationship.
Yes, they do.
Go look at how many times they have made trades over the years. Like,
yes, they do. And they worked together in the preseasons
amazing.
in the past.
Yes.
Had preseason workouts before, we're talking about before the preseason. So I don't mean preseason work. I mean, training camp workouts.
Like we've gone up to Gillette Stadium and they've done practices together. There's no doubt that there is a tie there.
That would be interesting.
Look,
I think, look, these guys, I'm not even going to say his ego, because I think anyone would want to do this. You have a chance to become the all-time winningest coach in the history of the National Football League. You're not just going to throw that away. So, I mean, he's definitely going to want to come back. That doesn't mean that someone's going to give him a chance, because they didn't this year. But I just don't think maybe it was the right fits. Obviously, Atlanta didn't want to cede that much control over to Bill Belichick. I'm not blasting him for that. I think Raheem Morris is whatever. I mean, good luck with that. I'm not saying you should have hired Bill Belichick, but it is going to take the right fit. That's why I don't know if he would work in Dallas, but Buffalo would be an interesting scenario, and so would New Orleans, both of those spots. So
yeah, I do think that having, like, it was such just kind of a whirlwind. All of a sudden Bill's going to be out, and there's no doubt he's like coaching the coach. Like,
right.
He's not, when he's on the job, he's not focusing in on
100%.
how can I go fix another team.
Yeah, 100%.
So
sure.
I think the year like a year, if he takes a year off and wants to get back in, similar to Sean Payton, like, you can lay out the land, have a bigger, broader scope of what people are doing elsewhere, take pieces, this, that, and the other, talk to people on a staff. Like, you have more time to gather something. So yeah, now we're talking it through. I mean, I would think he would come back next year, like for the 20.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if he doesn't come back. All right, Super Bowl 58. Let's give our early thoughts. Now, we're not going to give away fully. No, we probably will give away when we start talking about the game or whatever. I have no idea what Larry thinks. We've been pretty, I would say for the most part, surprisingly in lockstep throughout these playoffs. There have only been a couple instances where we disagreed. We happened to disagree last week on Baltimore and Kansas City.
It's like I didn't believe in Baltimore one week. Then they won. Then I'm like, oh, let me believe in you. And then they lost.
You can't do it that way.
That side, the AFC, I just let me move on from that one. NFC, I feel okay.
Okay, well, yeah, you've definitely been better with the NFC. That's the way that works. You were right about Tampa Bay beating Philadelphia. I think that's the only one where you got me so far. But anyway, all right, going through an early thoughts, and we see some numbers on here. San Francisco opened up as a 2.5-point favorite. It dropped to 1 almost immediately. People with money were pouncing on that like a cat was pouncing on a mouse. But now it's been kind of interesting how it's moved, and I don't think the casual bettor has noticed these subtle shifts the last couple of days. And the line has stayed at 2, but the number to get that -2 has changed, and the money line has shifted ever so slightly. It's kind of going back and forth. So the way that it's moved the past few days especially tells me that I think that this line is pretty much going to stay where it is. So if you're looking for a bargain, I don't think you're going to get one. If you're looking for it to go too far one way or another, I don't think you could, whether you bet it today, tomorrow, or a week from Sunday at 5:29 p.m. I don't think it's going to be that much different. The Niners were on the money line -130 yesterday, went from -120 to -125 to -130, and then somebody must have pounced on Kansas City at +110 because it went back to -120 and +100. So little subtle shifts. that you might not notice again if you're a casual bettor, because the -2 itself hasn't changed. What are some of your thoughts? Again, not asking who your pick is, but do you think this line is about right? Are you surprised that it's a pick'em game? San Francisco has been the consensus number one throughout the season if you average everything out. Kansas City had its trouble in the regular season, but obviously they've been the best team in the playoffs without question.
I think it's fair. Like everything that's here is fair. Like, so that's Kansas City seems like they've kind of got their act together, but still, when you look at the last game, all right, it felt like the offense was playing better, and then it slowed down in the second half, and what was it, 17-10?
Right.
Like, it was still not like an offensive explosion, and Kansas City's defense got the job done. Like, that's been their recipe for winning just about all season. Like, the defense has really carried them, and you would never expect to hear that from a Patrick Mahomes-led team. Like, it's like we're going back to Drew Brees' like end of his career when the defense was doing that to help that side out. You wouldn't expect that to happen to a Patrick Mahomes still in his 20s. Like, you wouldn't expect that yet. But it's been a crazy year, and I'm not putting the blame on Mahomes. Everybody who's watched could see the skill position players. They're not up to par. Like, so yeah, the recipe they've been doing makes sense. Now the 49ers, it's wild that like they had this highly lauded defense going into the season, and they played well, but it's like they give up yardage, but then it's like they get their way back into a game, and they to me it's shaky. But the 49ers, I think their offense, I think it's been a really good thing for them that they've had to be battle tested. Like, they were not really battle tested a ton in season. And the fact that they've had to be battle tested twice and get through, it has them primed to go up against a good Chiefs defense. So, like, you even it all out, like 49ers defense can be sluggish at times. Chiefs offense can be sluggish at times. 49ers offense, they can kind of do it both ways with McCaffrey and in the passing game when they're playing well. Chiefs defense, I feel like, is the strength of their team. So it's weakness versus strength, and it all kind of makes it an even out game.
Yeah, I agree. And look, when it comes down to how are you going to pick this game, it really is going to be tough because like I said, do you go with San Francisco has frankly been lucky to make it this far. They were lucky in the sense of Green Bay making some mistakes there down the stretch. Jordan Love making a few mistakes down the stretch, and then last week, I'll get your thoughts on this now. I mean, look, I know you probably don't think, at least not as harshly as I do. I think Dan Campbell just an absolute bonehead. When you could talk about go through each fourth down decision. We don't need to go through all of them. And then at the end, that's the worst one. When you're talking about running the football on a third down, you're just cocky arrogance. It killed him. I mean, running the football, and he has to blow a timeout. Whereas if you throw the ball, and I heard someone say this, and it's true, they'd have been better off throwing an interception right there than running the ball and not scoring a touchdown. You throw an interception, you still got all three of your timeouts left. You're going to get the ball back if you stop them 1, 2, 3. But here, instead, you run the ball. You've got to call a timeout. You don't have a choice, and now you're screwed. And so, and the fourth down decisions, just that first one coming out of the half where the 49ers kick a field goal, and then the Lions drive down, and your arrogance and your ego, that's the way he's coached all season long. Who gives a damn? I mean, common sense needs to take over right there. You kick the field goal, and you demoralize the 49ers. Like, they're done. That game's, if you kick that field goal, they're done. The game is over. But no, you want to coach the way you've coached all year long instead of doing what makes sense. He didn't coach the way he coached all year long when he kicked the field goal before halftime. So I don't want to hear that stuff, but I'm interested to get your thoughts.
The first one was the downfall. I mean, it reminded me, it's not a decision that I'm going to compare it to, but it was a total momentum changer. Like that one, why not go up 3 scores?
Change the whole game.
Like, why not? Like, it's just silly. And it wasn't some like 60-yard field goal. Like, right. It was a 40 plus. Like, you got to make
It's
that.
in the 28, so it's a 45-yard field goal.
You got to make
and the,
that.
And the dude from 45 and in, I believe, was 78% over the course of his career. You can say whatever you want. Michael Badgley, obviously not the greatest field goal kicker in the world. He was sitting on the waiver wire until whatever week of the season, week 10 or 11 or whatever week they picked him up. But any reasonable kicker in the NFL is going to make a 45-yard field goal at least 75% of the time, probably 80. And I promise you that he wasn't thinking about whether people saying, oh, he's probably thinking his field goal kicker stinks and he's afraid to. He wasn't thinking about that.
No,
he was
he just
thinking
wanted to
about
go
being
for it.
Dan Campbell.
Yeah, he wanted to be aggressive. Like that's and I mean, good head coaches. If you're a good one, you got to be able to know when. I'm going to sound like the drunk driving commercial. Know when to say when. Like kick the field goal. Like this is no brainer. Like why not do it? And the odds of making the field goal are better than the odds of getting the first down. Like it's just given the distance and all this. Like so, no.
Look, I said this on Final Bet last night. Well, I said it before last night because we taped it, but I said on
ruining
Final
the
Bet,
magic of TV.
Yeah, I'm
Jim.
sorry. Well, let's sorry, Garland. I'm blowing the secret. We taped that show.
Yeah.
But I will say this. As someone who had everything tied up, and I mean, all my bets last week were tied into the San Francisco money line. I either had something parlayed or teased, or everything was with San Francisco. And sitting there when it was fourth down, I'm playing, please God, for the love of God, go for it, Dan Campbell, like you always do. Because I knew that if they kicked the field goal, that game was over. If you go back up 3 scores in the middle of the third quarter, San Francisco is going to be demoralized. They're going to have their heads down. Could they come back? Sure. But for all intents and purposes, that game's over. And then they weren't talking about it at first, and then they pan back up, and there's Jared Goff still on the field. And I'm like, thank you, Lord. And sure enough, the pass dropped. I don't care whether it was dropped. You can blame whoever you want. I put the blame on Dan Campbell. And it completely changed the game. And like you said, I think it's just a little mentality shift. And, of course, Niners come right back down. Not only do they score the touchdown, but the very next play, Jahmyr Gibbs fumbles the football. And then you knew the game was over.
Oh, yeah. Well, the event I was going to allude to, I mean, wasn't a call, but I mean, sorry, close to home. The Jared Cook fumble against the Bucks.
Yep.
The total. It's because, I mean, that's a turn. Like them turning over downs is a turnover. That's a turnover.
Yep.
So it's the same thing. Momentum. You could obviously there weren't too many fans in the building when that happened because it was COVID, but still, it's like you let the air out and all of a sudden you're like, oh, the 49ers are back in it. And momentum's a real thing. It's just, it is a real thing. And
is that the last game you covered that you were covering the Saints?
Yes. That was the last one. Drew Brees' final game. That is the last one.
That's one hell of a way to go out.
I've covered some doozies. I've covered some good ones, and I've covered some doozies. Man, I was still picking when I covered the Minneapolis Miracle.
Oh,
and we did radio in Minneapolis.
Yeah, we were doing. In fact, I was doing some shows from our Canal Place studios with Amos when that was going on. I don't know if Claude was up there with us as well, but I don't know. But when y'all couldn't do it, yeah. So it was. We were all a part of that. That was weird times.
Yeah, but
bringing back great fond memories.
Well,
it's a struggle. All right. Do you look at prop bets at all?
I have not looked at anything yet.
Will you? Is that something you'll get into?
I'm not gonna wager on any of them because I outthink myself. But I'll take a look at some of them. Like I just want to know, the length of the national anthem. That's the only one I really care about.
Yeah, well, we're gonna give you our official picks next week. Before we go,
but you need to give me a list. How about this? Give me a list.
Okay.
And then we can go through a bunch next week. All
right, I will do that. I will give you a list of prop bets. And I will say this, said this on Bayou Bets yesterday. I truly mean this. If you want to bet, if you're like 98% of the Aunt Mabels and Drunk Joes out there, and you like to bet overs and you would never bet an under, do it now. It's almost too late now. Because let me tell you, all these numbers, they go up. None of them go down. If you like Christian McCaffrey's over 91.5 yards or whatever it is rushing, That's going to be 95.5 by game time. Mahomes is 260.5, and I haven't even looked at it today, but that'll be, I'm not exaggerating, that might be 280.5 by game time. That's how much that's going to go up. So nothing goes down. So what they tell you, what goes up must come down, not true. Not in the world of betting. So nothing's
just
coming
balloons,
down.
not
Just
betting.
balloon. You can pop a balloon. That's exactly right. You can pop us. Before I let you go, I do want to get your thoughts on Lamar Jackson real quick. You can't blame everything with Baltimore. You had Baltimore last week. You were believing in Lamar Jackson. To me, it was part Lamar Jackson and part I wasn't betting against God. And to me, Mahomes is God in the NFL. So that's not teasing anything for next week. Don't read too much into it. But I've had Mahomes 2 weeks in a row, and he's won me some money. But Lamar Jackson, do you have any hopes that he can win a Super Bowl at some point?
I do. Like, I think I wish they would have run the ball more. Like,
absolutely.
That's like a game plan.
What the hell?
It was like a game plan fail. Like too many 3-and-outs. Like, and then it was like too much on his shoulders. And then here's the thing: if Zay Flowers scores a touchdown, we might be having a different story.
Maybe.
Like that was a huge. That's the swing of the game. And so, but yeah, it's. I just think the game plan was faulty. And also, look, man, experience counts. Like Kansas City's been there.
No
Ravens
doubt about it.
in that with those players haven't. And so that's why I'm not going to discount it. But here's the thing. Like if you were ever going to get the Chiefs, this was the year. Like if you were ever going to beat them and you're the Ravens, this was the year. Like the Bengals – say Joe Burrow comes back. Like the Baltimore might not even win the division next year. Like if
I don't think they will.
Like Joe Burrow comes back.
Yeah.
Guess what? Cincinnati almost got in the playoffs without him. Like that's a whole different equation. And like Cincinnati has beaten the Chiefs multiple times.
I also think that when you get a bruise and loss like this, and now look, if you look at the Eagles and they lost both their coordinators, that's why they took a step back for the main reason. But I think when you and I'd have to go back and look in history, but when you take a brutal loss in either the Super Bowl or a championship game, to me, it really hurts you the next year. I think it's such a tough offseason. It's so much harder to get back into the groove of things when you have a loss like that. I just think it's totally demoralizing, and I think those things linger. I think the Ravens are going to, when I say struggle, I don't mean they're going to be a bad football team. I still think they'll be like a 10-win kind of team. But I do think that loss is going to linger into next year, and it's going to be something that they think about, and it's certainly going to be something Lamar Jackson thinks about when he gets into a similar situation later in his career.
Oh, for sure. And maybe they'll have some other skill position players like Zay Flowers isn't going anywhere.
Yeah.
And that defense is still going to be good, but you're going to have a new coordinator. Well, I mean, we know that. But still, it's certainly when you haven't been there and done that and you kind of get beat like that, it's hard to get back. Like, I mean,
Dak obviously thinks about it.
Well, he's only gotten as far as the divisional round. So, I mean, it's not like.
Well, I mean, Lamar had only gotten as far as the divisional round until this year.
But it's like he got over that hurdle. And if there was ever a year that you were going to take down the Chiefs, it would have been this year. And didn't happen. It could be like a Chiefs, like almost like Patriots are kind of always lingering around and sneak back in.
I've said this for 3 years now. I totally believe it. I think Patrick Mahomes, when he's said and done, is going to surpass Tom Brady. He's going to surpass Joe Montana. In my mind, I think when he's said and done, I think Patrick Mahomes will be, at least for now, it always changes, right? The greatest quarterback who's ever played. He just does things that no one else can do, and he finds ways to win. To me, this Kansas City team is, in the grand scheme of things, it's not a great elite team, but yet here they are playing in the Super Bowl with less talent, in my opinion, than they had last year, which was less talent they had in some of the other years.
Well, that's like the Patriots. It's not like they had elite talent everywhere.
100%.
Like that's, yeah. I mean, they get it done with the quarterback and then the pieces around him. So it's very similar in that sense. It's not like,
and a coach in Andy Reid that's just, sure.
Yeah. Yeah,
obviously going to be in the Hall of Fame.
yeah, it's not like you have like star-studded players everywhere. Like they just find ways to win, and I mean
Right.
that's not a fluke. Like you find ways to win, but it does help when you got awesome quarterbacks. So
All right, well, we're going to have our predictions next week. It'll be interesting. Again, I don't like to talk to you too much about this stuff because I don't want to know what you're picking. I'm sure you don't care what I'm picking.
I think my pick is public already.
Oh, it is? I didn't see that. How did I miss it? I'm
You had
definitely
to turn it in this week. I'm
Okay.
pretty sure it's public. I'm not going to reveal it. If people want to go find it, yeah, but
I didn't see it. Now, see, I have to stay away from the Athletic.
Don't go read it then.
For the next 7 days, I have to stay away from the Athletic. That's going to be hard to do.
Ah, geez, you just don't have to go find like one article in it.
Okay, well, I'll stay away from your pick. But we will have our picks, and I am going to send Larry a list of some prop bets that we will be talking about and things that we like.
Over under Taylor Swift photo appearances.
God.
It might be 0 if she's not there.
She's going to be there. For God's sake, it's the Super Bowl.
Put a hologram of her.
She's in Japan. It's only, they said I don't know, 25.
They might move the Super Bowl to Hawaii just to.
I mean, I got to be honest. This is so absurd that it wouldn't shock me at all if they you know what? We're going to play the Super Bowl for the first time ever on Monday so Swiftie can get there. I mean, that's how ridiculous this is. It's just so stupid.
Just learn to love it. What's the harm?
That's what everyone says. What's the big deal? Because it's supposed to be about football. But look, I will say this in the defense of the Swifties out there. To me, football's over. Okay, the Super Bowl is like this entertainment spectacle, and it doesn't even really matter. Now, I've done very well in the Super Bowl the last 8 or 10 years, like very well, the last 8 or 10 years. It's helped supplement my income. I'm just going to say that. It really has. I'm not.
It helps supplement mine because it's a work day for me, and I've got to,
Oh, and you get a little overtime?
No. Overtime? What does that mean? Yeah, right. How long have you been in this business with me? What's overtime?
Look, maybe one of us is getting it because I think I've gotten overtime like once in the last 3 years, and it was kind of a gift.
Times
I don't even know if I'm supposed to say that on the air that I got it once in the last 3 years. Might get someone in trouble.
That's right.
It's a whole different story. All right. Well, as we said, we're gonna save everything for next week. We will have our picks, and hope you enjoy the first weekend of Mardi Gras. For those watching around the New Orleans area,
I'm getting out tonight. This might be the only
time. We're going
time
out tonight too. What you going in the city?
Yeah, we're gonna be. We're gonna be on St. Charles. I'll just leave it very vague.
Okay. Well,
I don't need all the Dattitude groupies following me.
They'll come find you, my friend. They will definitely come find. I'm going to be in Mandeville. I'm staying where we go to the Crew of Eve every year, and we got a lot of friends and Rod and the Crew of Eve. So that's what we'll be doing. And parade starting. I'm trying not to eat too much king cake, but it's damn hard.
Enjoy it. It might be a little cool, so it'll keep you warm.
And we'll see what happens. All right. Talk to you next week.
All right, buddy.
All right, everybody. As always, when I'm done with this, as soon as I click the end stream button, I will be going to record my monologue and give you my thoughts of what's going on. I will talk a little bit about Saints, but I'm going to have a little bit more to say about Dan Campbell. I'm excited about that part of it. And then, what is our song of the day? Let's just say it has something to do with Mardi Gras and maybe somebody who's playing in the Super Bowl. I'll give you a little tip. So join me wherever you find your podcast. Search for Dattitude, and you'll see Larry and I next Friday. Have a great weekend, everyone.